The emergency sirens howled through the pristine corridors of Starlight Medical Station. The soft hum of artificial gravity pulsed beneath the sterile floors, but the usual order of the station had erupted into chaos. Dr. Elara Voss yanked off, her gloves, sweat forming at her temples as she turned to the two towering officials blocking the doorway. "Step aside," she ordered, cradling the tiny, trembling creature in her arms. "You disobeyed direct protocol, Nurse Voss." One of them, a uniformed enforcer with cold, unfeeling eyes, stepped forward. His nameplate read, Commander Ryle. "That thing is classified. You had no clearance to intervene." "It's a baby," Elara hissed, clutching the small alien dragon tighter against her chest. The creature whimpered, its iridescent scales flickering through shades of violet and gold. "It was dying. I had no choice." "A choice was made," Ryle corrected, his expression impassive. "And now you face the consequences." Behind him, the hospital director, an older woman with steel-gray hair, crossed her arms. "Your employment is hereby terminated, effective immediately." Elara's breath caught. "You're firing me for saving a life, for violating intergalactic non-intervention laws," the director snapped. "That species belongs to the Korath Dominion. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Elara glanced down at the baby dragon. It looked up at her with large, intelligent eyes. Its tiny claws grasped weakly at the fabric of her uniform. And then, a voice. Not spoken, not heard, but felt. Elara Voss. It whispered in the depths of her mind. "You are chosen." Her vision blurred. The walls of the medical bay melted away, replaced by the vast expanse of the cosmos. Stars pulsed like ancient heartbeats, and a massive golden dragon, translucent and endless, coiled through the void. "Who are you?" she thought. "We are the elders of the Skyborn. You have broken the chains of fear. For this, you shall be rewarded." Elara gasped as warmth spread through her veins. The baby dragon in her arms suddenly shimmered, its body enveloped in a golden glow. And then, the alarms cut out. Silence fell. Commander Ryle staggered back. What is happening? Elara didn't know, but deep inside she felt it. Everything was about to change. Light erupted from the small dragon in Elara's arms, expanding in waves that bent reality itself. The walls of the sterile medical bay blurred, flickering between the present and something ancient, something beyond time. Commander Ryle reached for his communicator, his voice tight with panic. "Containment breach. I repeat, we have—" He never finished. The air around him shimmered, freezing him in place. Not just him, the entire room. The director, the security officers, even the flickering emergency lights, all caught in suspended time. All except Elara and the baby dragon. The voice returned, a deep resonance within her mind. "You have chosen compassion over fear. The Skyborn recognize your heart." Elara swallowed hard. "What does that mean? What's happening?" The tiny dragon lifted its head. "We have waited," it said, not in words, but in thoughts woven with images of vast celestial cities, golden spires piercing nebulae, and creatures like itself soaring through infinite skies. "You have freed me. Now I free you." A sudden pull, like gravity shifting sideways. The world fractured. Then, darkness. And then, stars. Elara stood on an open expanse of shimmering glass. An endless sky stretched above and below. A floating city hovered in the distance, built from crystalline towers that pulsed with their own inner light. Shapes moved in the air. Dragons, hundreds of them, each one glowing like a living constellation. She turned, heart pounding, and found the baby dragon, sitting at her feet. But it was no longer small. It had grown, its wings spreading wide, its eyes gleaming with knowledge older than human history. "You were cast aside for saving me," the dragon said, its voice deep and resonant now. "That was your loss." Elara clenched her fists. "I'd do it again." The dragon's golden eyes studied her for a moment before it nodded. "Then this is your reward." A brilliant light surged toward her, wrapping her in warmth, in power. Her skin tingled, her senses sharpened, and knowledge flooded into her mind. Star, maps, ancient wisdom, languages of beings she had never seen before. And then she heard something else. A warning. A shadow moving at the edges of the cosmos. Something was coming. Elara gasped as the flood of knowledge filled her mind. The golden dragon stood before her, wings spread wide, shimmering like the heart of a star. But beyond the beauty of this celestial realm, she felt it, a creeping cold slithering through the edges of the universe. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The dragon turned its massive head, eyes narrowing. "The Hollow." Elara shivered. The name itself sent a chill through her bones. She didn't know what it meant, but somehow she understood. A presence, a force that devoured light, swallowing entire worlds into a void of nothingness. "The Hollow awakens," the dragon said, "and it has noticed you." A deep, distant rumble echoed across the sky. The stars flickered. Somewhere far off, a black tendril coiled through space, stretching toward them. Elara's pulse raced. "What do we do?" The dragon turned back to her, something unreadable in its golden gaze. "You were cast out for saving a life. Now you must decide if you will save an entire universe." Elara clenched her fists. She had lost everything, her job, her home, the life she had built. But standing here, in a place beyond imagination, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't powerless. "Tell me what I need to do," she said, lifting her chin. The dragon's wings flared, sending a cascade of golden light through the endless sky. "Then let your training begin." And just like that, the stars around them shifted. A new journey had begun. Elara barely had time to breathe before the world around her twisted. The celestial sky blurred, the floating city vanished, and in its place, a battlefield. She stood on an endless plain of cracked obsidian, under a sky that churned with violet storms. In the distance, mountains of shattered ruins loomed, remnants of civilizations long forgotten. The air buzzed with static energy, and the golden dragon was nowhere in sight. But she wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the haze. Tall, armored beings with eyes like burning stars. Some had wings of molten silver. Others bore weapons crafted from pure energy. At their center, an ancient figure stepped forward, his face carved with wisdom and war. "You stand in the crucible," he intoned, his voice echoing across the void. "The Hollow is coming. Only those who are worthy may stand against it." Elara swallowed hard. "And what if I'm not?" The figure tilted his head. "Then you will not leave this place." A chill crawled up her spine. She flexed her fingers, feeling something different in them. Power, coiled and waiting. A sword materialized in her grip, shimmering with the same golden light that had enveloped her before. The weapon pulsed in her hands as though alive. One of the armored warriors stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Prove yourself!" And then he lunged. Elara barely had time to react. The warrior moved. Within human speed, his blade flashing toward her, instinct took over. She twisted, parried, sparks flying as her sword met his. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the air, another attack, another block. Her body moved faster than her mind could process, muscle memory that wasn't hers, guiding her through every strike. The warrior spun, his blade coming down hard, too hard. Elara raised her sword to block, but the force sent her crashing to the ground. Pain shot through her limbs. The warrior pointed his weapon at her throat. "You are not ready." Elara gritted her teeth. "Then train me until I am." Silence stretched between them. Then slowly the warrior lowered his blade. The ancient figure nodded. "Then let the training begin." The sky rumbled. The storm grew darker. The Hollow was coming. Elara's muscles burned. Sweat dripped down her brow as she swung her sword, each strike more precise than the last. Days, weeks, maybe even months had passed in the crucible. Time was different here, bending and stretching like a living thing. Her teacher, the warrior known as Kale, circled her with the patience of a predator. Again, Elara tightened her grip on the glowing blade and lunged. Their swords clashed, ringing like a chime through the storm-filled air. Kyle blocked effortlessly, twisting away, his silver wings flaring. "Too slow," he said. Frustration flared in her chest. She pivoted, slashing low, but Kyle leapt over her strike, landing with impossible grace. Before she could react, he struck, his blade stopping just inches from her neck. "Dead again," he said. "The hollow won't give you second chances." Elara let out a sharp breath, staggering back. "You keep telling me what I'm doing wrong," she snapped. "What am I missing?" Kyle studied her for a long moment. Then he lowered his sword. "You fight with fear," he said. "You still see yourself as the woman who was cast aside. But the hollow doesn't care about your past. It only consumes. You must become something greater than what you were." His words struck deep. Elara clenched her fists. She had spent her entire life following rules, listening to orders, saving lives only to be discarded like she was nothing. But here, in this strange place, she was being asked to be more than a healer. She was being asked to become a warrior. Crack of thunder split the sky. The storm above churned, dark tendrils slithering through the clouds. A terrible pressure filled the air, something ancient, something watching. Kale's expression darkened. "It's found us." Elara's pulse quickened. "The hollow?" Kale nodded, gripping his weapon. "Your training is over." He turned to face the storm. "Now we fight." The darkness surged forward.